All right, good evening. Welcome, everyone. Before we begin with our proceedings this evening, I would like to highlight our safety protocols and expectations. Please wear a mask at all times, before, during, and after the meeting, while on school and district grounds. If you do not have a mask, one will be provided for you. Seating is set up to ensure that everyone remains 6 feet apart. If you came with someone from your household, we just ask that you leave the appropriate space between yourselves and others. Our meeting space is set up for individual seating. Please do not remove any of the tape for the areas that are blocked off to help us maintain the recommended distancing. Public comment cards and meeting agendas are located outside of the auditorium on the marked table. Once you fill out a comment card, please submit this in the drop box next to the comment cards. Our board assistant will collect the cards when I call for public comment and deliver them to our board secretary, Ms. Lewis. I will call down each individual one at a time to address the board at the presentation table. Again, we ask that you wear your mask during the comment period. We also have interpreters working remote. If you are in need of this assistance, please let us know, as we have staff present to support this at the top floor of the auditorium. On behalf of our superintendent, Dr. Ledrian Roby, and the Board of Education, thank you for being here in attendance with us. I will call this meeting of the Grand Rapids Public Schools Board of Education to order. This evening is Monday, June 7. Will you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Lewis, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Reverend Matthias?
Present.
Mr. Ross?
Here.
Mrs. Williams?
Present.
Dr. Baker?
Here.
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Dr. Flores?
Present.
Ms. Grant?
She's excused.
Ms. Lewis here. President Chotke?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion for approval of this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Support. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. All right, Ms. Anderson, do we have any public comment for board agenda items tonight? We do not have any for board agenda items, so we'll move on to our reports. Ms. Lewis, may we have the secretary's report, please?
I do not have one tonight.
Oh, do you have it, Mr. Ross?
No, it's just, I did leave it here, so I'll go ahead and do it for you.
You could just,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
the only, Secretary's report is just a reminder to committee members that there's a policy committee meeting on Wednesday, June 16th, 5 o'clock at Franklin campus. And just the announcement of the same thing to community folks. So that's it, Wednesday, July 16th, 5 o'clock, policy committee meeting at Franklin campus.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ross. We'll move on to our committee chair updates. First is Reverend Matthias with the Finance Committee.
So Mr. Overus will be reporting on some amendments and resolutions that we will be taking up and voting on, as well as purchasing agendas.
Great, thank you, Reverend Matthias. Policy Committee update, Ms. Lewis.
yes, there's no new policies tonight. Ms. Pitts is gone, and so when she returns, we'll be bringing 2 weeks from now.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, we'll move on to our superintendent's reports this evening. Dr. Roby.
Good evening, everyone. Just very quickly, with our return to learn final report for the 2020-21 school year, communications have been sent to our families related to fall of 2021. Our year-end update includes plans to return to 100% in person for fall of the 21-22 school year. Additional information will be communicated to all of our families throughout the summer months as updates related to mitigation efforts evolve and change. And we want to make sure that families are aware of that, and we'll make sure that we have a concerted effort to do so. With respect to, well, that's pretty much it. And then I know that Mr. Johnson will come up and do some information about the summer school meal program and safety.
Good evening, President Shockey, Superintendent Dr. Roby, and other distinguished members of the board. I'll be brief, but give some good information in terms of what is going on this summer as it relates to our security programs as well as the food service. And I'll start out with food service first. We will be providing summer feeding this summer at a total of 39 sites. That would include about 20 of GRPS sites, our summer school sites, and extended learning sites, and then 12 community sites. And that could be possibly in a church, community center, nonprofits. And then we have 7 grab-and-go sites. On the days that summer school is in session, Monday through Thursday, we will be feeding out of our GRPS sites, as well as the community sites will be fed on those days as well. The grab-and-go sites, the 7 sites, it will only be a Monday and Thursday distribution of food, but we'll be delivering 3 meals per day on those 2 days to get families through. In comparison to last summer, from July 1st through August the 13th, we did about 82,000 meals. And that's pretty significant. And we don't think it'll be that high this year. We hope it is, because we hope our families take advantage of the food that's available in the community. But we're looking forward to it. We have all those sites are staffed. We have the cooks are ready to go, and we'll be prepared on the first day that our summer programs start to start distributing food. Any questions on food service? If not, I'll move right into the security. Security will also be working this summer. Last summer they had a great time, kind of switching roles a little bit and preparing meals and working with the MIS department and distributing technology. So they'll be back inside of buildings this year. About 21 of the 37 officers will be working. They'll be working in the extended learning program, summer loop program. They'll be doing some construction site security, checking construction sites and some of the projects that we have in buildings where our doors may be open. And then just our general security visits throughout all of our buildings, checking even those buildings that are closed to make sure we don't have any busted water pipes or have had any intrusions through the night. They will also have an opportunity in some of the summer extended learning programs, the loop programs in the afternoon, to participate in some prevention related programs where they'll be teaching the Teaching, Education, and Mentoring program, which is a prevention program, and just trying to help establish safety protocols for our families to and from school, during the school day, and as they go through the course of their life to keep them safe. So, any questions around the summer security program? If not, that will conclude the brief report, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Helmholtz, regarding our strategic planning community survey. Welcome.
Good evening, Dr. Roby, President Shockey, members of the board. Here to provide an update on our strategic planning process. As you know, Martha Greenway and a member of her team were here recently, did the retreat with the board. We also engaged in a number of focus groups. That's part of kind of the phase 1 of the initial process here. And so we had a student focus group, we had the parent focus group, teacher focus group, another focus group comprised of union leadership and members from the other groups, including parapros, administrative professionals, family support, facilities and ops, and childcare. We are going to be scheduling a separate one with the facilities, ops, and food services. We just didn't get as much participation that time. Our after-school providers, and then some of our faith leaders, including African-American, Latinx, and more African refugee faith leaders. We have focus groups coming up next week. Martha and her team will be back in town. And so we have another faith partners group. We have a principals focus group, cabinet focus group, the GRAP, the operations facilities I just mentioned, foundations, to college, through college, immigrant and refugee, and if we can squeeze it in, the Kent School Service Network. We've also been continuing to meet with some of our partners who want to engage at a higher level, and that includes some representatives from the Urban Core Collective, Community Foundation advisory members, and just had some great work continuing to build on that. And much of that is going to focus in on the phase 2, but they're helping us with some of the phase 1 here as well. And then the main purpose for me here was that the stakeholder survey launched last week, Wednesday. We will be running this through the month of June. That was emailed to 36,000 individuals, including every student email, parent email, staff email, and all the community partners that have signed up over the years. We've been posting it on social media. We will have paid advertising as well as digital marketing, paid marketing. And we're going to also have developed a list of about 60 of the leading kind of nonprofits, neighborhood associations, community service organizations that are going to be getting this frequently to help boost the numbers of the survey. And then we also had sent out for all 6th through 12th graders these last 3 days of school. And we know it's not the great timing, but we're setting aside time after exams to try to get as many students to complete the survey as well. So that information is on our website, grps.org. It's under news and events, but there's also a new landing page. That's grps.org /strategic-plan. There'll be a quick link embedded on the webpage as well, and you'll begin to see here and more. Thank you to Ms. Williams and Reverend Matthias for your great video that was included as well in our e-newsletter. And you're going to start seeing that paid and boosted, so hopefully it'll pop up in your feed a lot more. That's all
Great.
I have. Any questions?
You may have said this, forgive me, but the survey link goes direct to the strategic planning firm, correct?
That's correct. It is completely confidential. All that information is going to be analyzed by Greenway. That information, once it's done, we are going to be very transparent, very open on what the results were. So that information will be posted to that strategic plan webpage as these reports come back. As you remember, this is really there's 3 phases to your strategic planning process, to our process. And this is just phase 1. Once we get through the survey, we'll begin to pivot into phase 2.
Great. I took the survey this morning. It was very straightforward to get through. I appreciated the ability to agree and disagree with some of what came up through the focus groups about our strengths and our opportunities for growth, and also the opportunity to comment on maybe what I thought was missing. So great. We welcome our community to give feedback. It's what we need as we develop this next plan for our children. Any other comments or questions?
I'm just wondering what responses are you getting overall?
We already have more than 500 responses on the survey, which is a significant number. I mean, again, we're sending out 36,000, and we've hit that thing a couple times now, that list, but still strong numbers, and we're not even 1 week into it. And we haven't even started the paid advertising and some of the other things that we're going to do. So very encouraged. I think that is a sign of how just hungry this community is. We gained that state and national attention for the transformation plan success. I think there's a lot of eagerness to rally around our new superintendent and the board and really know that we're coming out of this pandemic finally. We can really get serious about what the future looks like. And this is just a part of that process. So good signs of what's to come.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mr. Helmholtz. Okay, that concludes our superintendent's reports for this evening. So we'll move into our action items. First are our executive exempt contracts. Dr. Roby.
All right. So what you will have before you will be a recommendation for me related to the exempt contracts for our executive directors and cabinet members. And I appreciate the board's vision. As of last year, there was a 1-year extension to everyone's contract that allowed me the opportunity to get to know cabinet members and directors and others as they are doing their work. And as you know, we have been in the process of a pandemic, and so we have been doing crisis work for most of the year. I can say that our cabinet leadership do crisis work very, very well. And now we're trying to move to more standard work, what our work should be. And for continuity of our programs and continued development of the work that we have to do, including strategic planning, other things, that is why I'm asking for the consideration of a 2-year contract for all of the cabinet members that are listed in the slate that you'll see. Also, this also ensures, again, that continuity of performance of the work that we are doing. I will share with you, as I have worked with all of our cabinet, executive cabinet members, worked very closely, have had some very detailed as well as constructive conversations, including some supports and having some very constructive, critical conversations around the work that we need to do. What you will see, and if Craig, if you can put on the screen our alignment of our organizational chart, there has been some shifting of duties, partially to, again, to ensure that we're able to support our buildings and our programs effectively, and also to kind of balance some workload opportunities. And so that is pretty small, so I apologize. And so we did try to make sure that you had a copy of it in front, but I wanted to make sure that you were able to see some of the things that have been moved around a little bit. Specifically with our DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have put that under professional development because it needs to be broad and across our systems. And where it was living before, it was in one particular department. And as the board has made a decision to specifically make a declarative statement around the work that we need to do as part of our district and our equity statement, we thought that it needs to be broad, not just only for teachers, but across our system, so that when people experience Grand Rapids Public Schools, we are aligned in the work in which we do. Also, foreign exchange has moved under the dual language programs. We made sure that seemed to be a better fit for there. Our HHM, which is homeless, highly mobile, that has moved under to special education and early intervention services. There's often a correlation between the needs of our students and also the transientness of our population, and we wanted to make sure that there was connections. And I should have said this, but I want to make sure I do say it. All of this work, even though, and I've said this to each of the directors and leaders, it doesn't mean that you are solely doing the lift. This is a thread through. So there should be expectations of coordination of services so that families and students and staff don't feel lost and say, well, I only can go to this person. There should be a connection, so that we're trying to unsilo some of the work that we do. Delineated the guidance counselors, and so prior to that, counselors just fell under kind of student operations, and it made sense that it fall under secondary programs, specifically under for middle and high school. So the guidance counselors should be working very closely with the secondary leadership and making sure that there's some alignment, so that when people are experiencing needs around academic services and such, that it's connected right to our instructional programs. And the separation of that also includes, we have added a component around social emotional learning and counselors and work that goes under student support services. And again, that fits very closely with health and nursing and volunteer and some of those other kind of softer skills that we need within our district. And so we wanted to make sure, again, that even though it may have one person who's leading that work, they are expected to coordinate and work with others across our system, so that we're not losing students, or we're not, that there's not gaps, or we're trying to eliminate gaps, of course. The recommendation, again, is that as I bring this forward for this team, my team, I'm asking the board to approve the contracts of our directors and our executive directors. What questions can I answer? Oh, let me, before I ask what questions I can answer and I still start talking. You'll make notice of in this role, we have a couple of add-ons. So Mr. Johnson has been serving as the interim director of executive facilities and operations, and that's an interim spot. And then also there is a vacancy where we are losing some people due to retirement. So we wanted to make sure that people were aware of that, but that work still will continue, of course. And then the addition of our new executive director of special education and intervention services, Ms. Moore, has been added in replace of Laura Lamore, who is retiring at the end of this school year. Now, what questions can I answer?
Dr. Rove, just to clarify, so the executive director of facilities and operations, this says Larry Johnson, but is that a position that's going to be?
I'm sorry, you're muffled.
Sorry. The facilities position is that you have for Larry. You just mentioned it. I wasn't clear on what you meant. That's a
so he's
vacant
been
position?
filling in because that was a previous position, and
Right.
then this year he has kind of stepped into that role. And if you recall that at our work session a couple of weeks ago, our retreat, he kind of unpacked some of the work that has been done. And so eventually, the goal is to fill that position.
Okay,
with-
that was my question.
Yes, yes.
All right. Because he's got 3 jobs here. It seems
Yes.
like, hopefully, we're not paying him 3 times.
I am not.
I did have a question in regards to the move for guidance counseling at the high school level.
Mhm.
And so can you just expand a little bit on that? What's the thinking there, or is it going to mobilize them?
Yes, and so we want to make sure as our students are getting ready for their post-secondary experience, it was separate, right? Prior to, it was under community and student affairs. And although there's still a component of that, but to make sure that there is a strong articulation as students are getting ready for their post-secondary plans, it really needs to be tied to the high school principal as well as the executive director in that, and making sure that there's some alignment there. And there seems to be as not as much of a connection, and so we're trying to make sure that it made sense for both students as well as staff and our families.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, may I have a motion for approval of the executive exempt contracts, please?
So moved.
Support. All right, Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Grant's excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. Our next 4 action items are related to purchasing and finance. So Mr. Oberst, perhaps we can call you forward. Thank you. The first is our purchasing agenda. Were there any questions on the purchasing agenda in the board packet? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the purchasing agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Grant's excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Next action item is our purchasing agenda addendum. Mr. Oberst, is there anything you'd like to mention about that?
Just briefly, at the Finance Committee meeting at the end of May, there are some items we didn't yet have the information available to put on the purchasing agenda. These have since, the information has since become available. However, because time is of the essence in these items, we could not wait until the June Finance Committee meeting later this month. So asking the board to consider these 3 items, one for our annual, what's called membership dues, which really are our general liability insurance premium with Middle Cities Cooperative, video services for the communication department to get that going, and then finally the upgrades to the Ottawa Hills Auditorium under item 2, Basin Electric, and it's funded by the CADA grant.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Oberst? May I have a motion for approval of the purchasing agenda addendum?
So moved.
Support. Support.
Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Yes. Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Grant's excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. All right, budget amendment time. Mr. Oberst, take it away.
And I neglected to say hello to Ms. Shockey and Dr. Roby and members of the Board of Education. We've got the 2 amendments for you to consider tonight. These were discussed at Finance in May. Amendment to the general fund, an amendment to the special revenue. As you recall, there is a 3rd fund that you're required as a board to approve, the debt service fund. We did not need to amend that after Amendment 1 back in January. So let me just pull up here. We can talk through. I'm going to look first at the general fund, and just want to remind board members that we'll take separate action on both the general fund amendment and the special revenue fund amendment. So is that in every, yeah, there we go, perfect. So, all right, this is just a detail of what went on with Amendment 2 for the general operating fund. Most of the adjustments on this amendment relate to all the special COVID-19 related funding that has been coming in over the last 12 months. Much of the information, some of the information was available back in January, some was not. We were still moving money around and figuring out just what we could spend money on. So if you look at this page here, first of all, let me just briefly mention that we did pick up about $1,067,000 in fund balance after Amendment 2 would be adopted. It would have our year-end fund balance projected at $10.8 million. I'll show you another summary of fund balance in just a minute here. The first section of the information here is a revenue sources, and the general operations column that has an impact on fund balance. The grant column does not. Any changes in revenue will actually equal the same amount of changes in the expense side. So zero impact on fund balance, just to remind you of that. You can see we just made some, in terms of the local revenue sources, just some adjustments as the year has gone on. We're getting a better sense of where things are going to come out. A big decrease in sale of assets we had projected in the budget that you approved last June for this year. About $1.7 million in facility sales. We brought $1 million of that back out in Amendment 1 back in January. The additional $700,000 we're not going to complete. As you know, we're having discussions with the ISD on those 2 building sales, Strait and KEC Oakley. Those discussions are ongoing. We got to wait to get some updated information, but those sales will not be completed in this fiscal year. So we'll pull that out, the $700,000, the big adjustment there. And then the grant side, just some local, you can see some of the local grants that we're adjusting some revenue and again, generally the revenue for most of these grants depended on expenses. So if we think we're going to spend more or less money, we recognize more or less revenue. So in this case here, you can see increase in revenue in several of the grants totaling $268,479, which is on line L there. Under the state sources, just firming up some of the state revenue based on our state aid status report that we get monthly. Those total state sources are being adjusted on line Y, an increase of $200,000. And you can see there's some decreases in the grant revenue. The Great Start Readiness Grant, it decreased to $725,990. Again, it's because we are recognizing less cost. That money carry forward into the next year to be spent in the next year. And then some other, again, decreases in grant revenue because our expenditures weren't as great as we'd anticipated, so we do not recognize that revenue until those expenditures take place, likely again next year. Under the federal sources, this is where most of the revenue adjustments are made related to title programs, and then the big adjustments, the ESSER 2 grant, $1,924,000, the GEAR grant, $1,549,000 that we are recognizing revenue this year. The ESSER 2 primarily, or ESSER 1 actually, primarily we are moving dollars out of our general operations into the ESSER amount for ESSER fund, if you will, for 2021, the current year. All told, revenue adjustments you can see on the general operating side, just under $19,000 net, not much. Again, the big amount increase on the federal sources, $8.1 million. And most of that issue, as I just mentioned, related to the federal funding related to COVID-19. Before I jump down to the expenses, any questions on those particular items on the revenue side? On the expense side, similarly, we've broken it down into the instruction side first, some salary and benefit adjustments that we always make. As you may recall, in January of each year, our health insurance changes. And so as we get into the months of January, February, March, and we figure out just what the changes are in terms of the plans that people are taking, we can adjust the salary and benefit information there. On the grant side, $3.6 million increase related to all these different grants, the revenue increases we just talked about, and there's the increase in the expenditures for those revenue increases. On the instruction side, and similarly in the support services, line AX here, again, an increase of $3.2 million. Transportation costs in the first column, line AW, a decrease of $1.5 million. I've talked about that before. Obviously, we were not back in session until January. We just settled the dean contract after a year of discussion a month ago, I guess. But nonetheless, the number of routes is obviously down since we weren't in the buildings most of the year. So we reduced that by $1.5 million from what we had budgeted back in June once we got the final contract negotiated and settled with Dean Transportation. And then just some other other adjustments down here in the section other grant related adjustments, increase in revenue, increase in expenses, $1.1 million. All told, our total expense adjustments net on the general operating side is to decrease expenses of $1.048 million. We increased expenditures on the grant section of $8.156 million. Go back up here again, the total revenue adjustments in the grant, $8.156 million. So again, no impact on fund balance. And that is the major adjustments as it relates to the general fund to get us the remainder of this fiscal year, which ends in a few weeks here. Any questions on any of those particular line items? Let me just quickly, if there aren't any, show you a summary here of fund balance. Let me get my everybody can see this, right, on your screen. It's on the screen, big screen behind you. Just a history of our fund balance. Give you some perspective here. Let's start here at the audited 2020. This is where we ended last year. Fund balance $10.7 million, about 7.26%. The proposed budget last year that you adopted in June, you may recall all the uncertainties and the potential cuts we were facing. We used a significant portion of our fund balance. We picked up some of that after the completion of the 2020 audit. So we started the year with a fund balance of $5.6 million, just over 4%. Again, below that 5% minimum we need to achieve. Amendment 1 brought in an increase in fund balance of about $4.2 million, moved it up to $9.8 million. 6.73%, and this amendment, if approved by the board tonight, would increase our fund balance to almost $10.9 million, or 7.4% approximately. For the year, Amendment 2, if it's accepted or approved tonight, we would actually show a small increase for the year in fund balance of about $140,000. So we ended the year at 7.26. Project to end this year at 7.38, so we pretty much had a break-even budget, which is a good thing. So that is the history of fund balance since the end of last year. Any questions on that?
So in layman's terms, it gives us some cushion.
Well,
That-
it gives us a cushion to speak of. We'll be starting 21, 22 year in much better shape, obviously, than we did last year. And as you're all aware, there's additional funding that'll carry forward into 21, 22, the ESSER 2, ESSER 3 dollars, and we'll talk about that budget at the work session next week. So, Ms. Schatke, would you prefer that I go into special revenue, or do you want to act on this general?
Why don't you do the special revenue fund and we'll do the motions after that.
Great.
Thank you.
Let me get that up. All right, special revenue. Again, the major fund within the special revenue funds is our food service fund, which is funded entirely with federal dollars. Just to remind you again, back 2 years ago, when we were still servicing the center program, special ed center programs, that fund was within our special revenue funds, but since that has been moved to the ISD, the major fund now is food service fund. There is no fund balance requirements for special revenue fund. We like to have a positive fund balance when it's all said and done. We really can't have a negative fund balance, but there is no minimum positive fund balance. We started the year special revenue at 4.6 million. We used some fund balance in Amendment 1. And we're picking up a little bit of fund balance in Amendment 2 here, if adopted, about 145. I'm sorry, the net change then for the year would be 145,000. And so we'd end this year at almost $2 million in fund balance for special revenue fund, which is certainly adequate. Since food service is a major fund within special revenue, that has the majority of the adjustments. It's really to reflect the reduced food service activity for the year because our kids were not in buildings until January. Then in January, only a certain portion of our student population were in the buildings. Meal counts were down significantly. Year to date through April, total meal counts as compared to a year ago through April are down about 2 million meals. And again, we have meal service. Once we went back into the buildings, we had pickup meal service at all our buildings that had students in there. So families who were still virtual could go to any of our buildings and pick up a meal, but it just didn't happen to the extent it would have if they were in school the whole year. So we are reimbursed with federal dollars based on meals that we serve. And so we made some adjustments. That's why we saw a significant decrease in Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. Again, revenue decrease about $500,000 here at the bottom. And then we also had reduced costs about $655,000 net. So that's the impact of food service. There is an issue that is out there that may impact our food service yet for this year, going back at the beginning of the pandemic, and there was some confusion within the food service arena, if you will, at the federal level about how to serve meals and everyone's virtual and what the reimbursement is and all those kinds of things. So the feds are working through a fix for that right now. They believe, and we believe we were underpaid earlier in the year. It could be as much as $1 million additional dollars we may get into the food service program. Don't know that for sure. I'm not quite sure when people will be notified of that, but there is some potential additional revenue related to the food service program for this year. We historically, at least the last I'm going to say 4 years, there is within the food service fund balance, there's only a certain level that you can carry forward from year to year. The last 3 or 4 years, we've had too much fund balance in food service. And so we had to present a plan every year to spend it down. It wasn't a problem this year, so we used that fund balance significantly in the current year because of the factors I just mentioned. So that is the special revenue amendment 2. Any questions I can answer on that?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Oberst. All right, may I have a motion for approval of Budget Amendment 2, General Fund?
Motion to approve the general fund?
Support.
Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Grant excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you very much. And may I have a motion for approval of Budget Amendment 2, Special Revenue Fund?
So move.
Support?
Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Ms. Grant is excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you.
What a year. Thanks, Mr. Oberst. Okay, next is our consent agenda grouping. Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion for approval, please?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Support.
Ms. Lewis, please call the roll.
Reverend Matias,
Yes.
Mr. Ross,
Yes.
Mrs. Williams,
Yes.
Dr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Yes.
Dr. Flores,
Yes.
Grant excused, Ms. Lewis, yes, President Shockey,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you very much. We do not have any discussion items this evening, so we'll move forward to public comment for non-agenda items. Ms. Anderson, do we have public comment? May I request someone goes up to, oh, did she step out? Okay, thank you. I didn't see that. Perfect, thank you.
Ms. Shockey, while we wait, just to, I guess it's a discussion item. I'm assuming that the next board meeting will be our budget meeting when we vote on our budget for next year.
One more time, the next board meeting will be where? Thank you, Dr. Baker.
The next, our next board meeting where we'll vote on our next year's budget, is that in the budget hearing? Is that announced yet?
I'm so sorry, I'm not.
The
fully-
next board meeting, the budget hearing, he was asking location?
Yeah. Yes, I just wondered if we've announced when the budget will be, I would assume voting on our budget for next year at the next
Yeah,
board meeting.
it
and we'll-
is on the calendar.
And a budget hearing.
Just give me a moment and I can look it up here,
Just
unless
thought
you
we
know it,
should
Mr.
announce
Oberst.
that.
I
Yeah.
thought it was the 21st, but I might be wrong.
I have to read my rules.
It's 21st.
21st, okay, very good.
Okay. So that's early on the night of our next board meeting. Is that
5:30.
correct?
Correct, yes, you got it. Thank you. Okay, great. We will move into public comment and Ms. Lewis will read the instructions.
Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. You will need to state your full name before providing your comment. You will then start the timer. We will then start the timer at the beginning of your public comment time and provide you with a 1-minute notice indicating 1 minute remains. You will need to complete your comment time upon being notified that the 3 minutes have passed. Board members do not respond to public comment. Concerns will be brought to the attention of the appropriate staff. We value your input and thank you for sharing with us.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lewis. So we'll begin public comment. It's my pleasure to welcome up Ms. Sini Gant-Jordan to the presentation table. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share with you tonight. I'm here on behalf of my community on Granville Avenue. I'm a small business owner and a product of Granville Avenue, born and raised. And my concern is around the lack of inclusion for our Black students that are at, and they have been being denied access to Southwest Community Campus to the point to where they are stopped at the door when they ask if they can come and apply, and they're being told that they cannot apply because they are not Latino, they don't speak Spanish. That's not the policy, that's not the process, and this has been going on far too long. My students who have now graduated that I did take out of the Grandpa's Public Schools because of this reason, even though this is my community where I pay taxes, this has been an ongoing problem. John Hemholt is aware of it. Dr. Gunnell is aware of it. When my student was at Southwest, I made them well aware of this at that time. She is now a graduate of Grandpa's Christian. I did take her out of the public schools for this reason. This is our community. This is a problem that's been ongoing. My students and others have been denied opportunity to take part in their neighborhood school. This is a problem. So we're asking that the criteria be changed to access the school. Tony Baker is aware of this problem. I have been at many meetings. I have not been quiet about this. So for my voice to go unheard is a real problem. I don't know what other steps I have to take, but trust me, I will take them. Because now I have grandchildren coming up in the community, and they should be able to go to the neighborhood school. We have students that live right across the street from the high school that are being bused to 52nd. We have students that are being bused to Oak Hill School. The parents did meet with John Hemholt and Mida Gunnell, so I think there needs to be a conversation that needs to happen. We want these policies changed in our community. This is a school that's receiving public funding, federal dollars, and it is supported by our community. I'm having a problem understanding why this hasn't been changed when we've been very vocal about this early on, before the high school was even built. So I'm asking you to take action before we have to, because it won't look good. It will not. And I'm sure that you understand that there has been articles in the newspaper that said that this is a community that the school is attended by community students.
1 minute.
Of all. And that's a lie. And so I'm asking that this be fixed, this be corrected, and that we have inclusion and opportunity, because
3 minutes.
All right, thank you very much for coming forward this evening.
thank you.
All right, next I welcome forward Mary Mayer. Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mary Mayer. I'm a business owner as well and an interpreter. I do it as a voluntary job that I help my community with. I've been in a lot of schools, hospital, and courts. And my biggest concern today is about the new dual program of linguistics. So that some of high school have and some of high school don't. And it's more of the same case. I met up some of your board members in the schools. And my biggest concern is, as a refugee, I've been raised in a refugee camp, and there's a lot of students that come to USA with, they have started with different languages. And when they get here and they actually live across the street at dual program high school, they have to travel across the city or town to go to different schools because of that dual program. I don't know, in different schools that I've been to, I actually, when the kids are graduating high school, I have grades in Swahili and other languages. I don't know why that specific schools like Southwest don't have that program to those students. To me, I don't think those students feel welcome in the community. I don't know if somebody or the board have to look into that and see how will those students that know different languages as second language apart from English, or they have English as a second language and they don't know Spanish, how will they fit in that school and how will they get help instead of traveling across town to go to different school and the school is just across the street to their home. That is the biggest concern. And I really, really feel that they should feel welcome in the United States instead of like, ignoring their needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to welcome forward Felicia Sims, please. Good evening, welcome.
Hi, I'm Felicia Sims. I've been employed at, I work at Campus Elementary for the past 14 years. And my concern is the building itself, like air was put in, I don't know how many years ago. Before that, we kept asking for air. And at one point we were told, well, those kids don't need air. And now that they put it in that old building, I've seen some of the kids use their inhalers more, and the air is not distributed, the right way through the building. If it's cool on the third floor, then it doesn't work on the first floor. I think the second floor, we only have air like in the computer lab, maybe the library. I know in the office, I haven't, there's no air. Because in my office itself, in the health office, I have to open the window and turn on the fan. So that's my concern, is for the kids and the air quality in that building. And in my office, I sit there and cough all day that I have to get up, because I don't know if it's something in the ducts or something that they opened up, but I have seen kids use their inhalers more due to after we got the air. And also it's the playground. At one point there was a church that offered to level the playground and redo it and make it safer for our children, especially that big metal slide, and it was denied. And I mean, I just don't understand why, if a church wanted to do it free of charge, why it was denied. I just want what's better for our children. We're study building schools, but it's like our inner city kids right there, they're bused to campus. They're not getting equally what the other students are getting. And that's my main concern, is for our inner city students to be equally applied with the things they need to thrive like all the other schools are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome forward William Alvin Gray. Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, Chairman, Board. I'm a concerned parent, citizen, who lives in the district, who had a daughter that possibly would have been in the district. My question goes, and it's probably twofold, goes toward the meet and map. My daughter's an extremely high reader. She took the meet and map test. She scored slightly low in math. I had a conversation with John Helmholtz, and I understand you all had a pretty rigorous standard in terms of how you are doing analysis on that test. And I guess I would be in favor of you all possibly looking at a different approach for other students that come along, because we know research shows that individuals with high readers, and have slightly low math scores. She was slightly low, the mark. It tends to show that readers who are extremely high can always come over that gulf. That's research shows that. And so she's been in Kentwood. She's a 3.89 student now. She'll be in high school. And I always envisioned her bringing her talent into this particular district. And so I would ask you all, first of all, I guess I have a question. What barriers would I have to overcome if I desire to bring her back? What might be, are those test scores still, is she still bound by those test scores? And what can I hope for? In fact, if she decides to come back, what can I hope for? Could she get her school of choice? And that would be my question.
All right, thank you very much for your comment. We'll have someone from district follow up with your questions. Okay, next, we'll welcome forward Natalie Tomlin. Good evening, welcome.
Hello, thank you. I'm Natalie Tomlin. My son attends Grand Rapids Montessori. He's been there for 2 years for preschool, and I'm here tonight to urge the board to establish a committee for parents to have more of a say in what happens in the district. And I echo what others have said, that as parents, and there's many of us, and we're just so, COVID just brought things up that have been existent in the district, with equity issues, with questions from ventilation in the building that my son attends, that I could never really get those questions answered. My principal was told that she was going to take the questions higher up, and I never heard back about that. So what we want is to hopefully, as parents and families, to be able to have a voice in some of the decision-making of the district, so that I know there's a survey that's out right now. We as parents and families don't feel that we know where that information is going. The information we enter in how we feel, then somehow it gets taken by this third party, and then we don't know where that information goes and if our voices are being heard. So we want something drastic to happen so that we're able to have more of a voice, so we can speak directly to the decision making of the district, because I personally love this district. I care about this district. I want this district to succeed, and I've been in Grand Rapids for 5 years, and I've wanted it to succeed the entire time I've been here, but to not feel as if I'm involved in the decision making whatsoever, and it's frustrating. And I don't know if any of you read Marta Johnson's op-ed in the Rapidian. She's hopefully on her way. She had to put her kids to bed, but I'm here echoing what she brought up in the op-ed. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our last comment this evening is from Courtney Myers-Keaton. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Myers-Keaton, and I'm a parent of 3 GRPS students. I choose GRPS because I value public school education and truly believe that we have the best schools around. I champion them as our schools of choice to other community members. However, this is not to say that the past 10 years have been without their challenges, nor would I expect them to be. I understand and empathize with the realities of running a system, the work that takes place behind the scenes, and the challenges to achieve systems change. That being said, I believe we are at a time where change is necessary and far from insurmountable. We have a simple request: create a parent advisory council that works in tandem with the board. Parents have repeatedly asked for authentic engagement with the board, with poor response, and oftentimes only after significant community organizing to force the issue at hand. Last summer, we presented an opportunity to GRPS to be leaders of creative systems problem solving through authentic parent engagement in order to address the concerns parents had in the midst of an ongoing pandemic. The response to this was more surveys and a virtual town hall. Those of us who are familiar with the community engagement spectrum should recognize that these tactics fall squarely in the informing and consulting end of the spectrum. We are requesting to be involved in the process more collaboratively and directly. Nothing about us without us. This is only one example. The pandemic highlighted an opportunity for systems and cultures to change for the better, to adapt quickly, create unique connections, and problem solve in ways never thought of before. We would be remiss if we regressed back to the ways we used to operate as a community. Parents need a real voice in our school system. We need to be at the tables and the spaces where decisions are made, not asked to fill out a public comment card and sit in the gallery. In 2018, I collaborated as part of a group of parent leaders from 9 communities across the country to develop a manifesto for race equity and parent leadership in early childhood with the Center for Study on Social Policy. The following 3 pillars of parent engagement are taken directly from the manifesto we created. And I believe we could accomplish this at GRPS through the creation of a parent advisory council. 1, parents are at the center. Agencies and systems center everything they do around families.
1 minute.
Listening to them, developing their leadership, and engaging them at every level, including decision-making. 2, parents are participating at all levels, planning and implementing ideas, programs and policies, making decisions. 3, parents are valued as experts. They know their rights and have the tools and resources to access opportunities for their children.
Time.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, we appreciate public comment this evening. Thank you for coming out. All right, we will move forward to our superintendent's comments this evening.
So just very briefly, I want to once again say congratulations to the class of 2021. This was the first time in many, many months that people were able to gather, and just to be able to see the joy and exuberance on graduates' faces, the relief for many parents. It was a beautiful week last week, graduation week, to be able to celebrate that end of the academic experience. And then also thank you to the staff who supported the various celebrations. So over the course of the week, there were 6 graduations over 3 days, and lots of behind the scenes work that went into play for that. Prepping, rehearsals, sound, security, shuttle services, traffic, programs, setup and tear down, and other incidentals. And so again, just to thank our staff and our community for coming out to celebrate the graduates of 2021.
Thank you, Dr. Roby. Board member comments. Dr. Flores, may I start with you?
Certainly. I would like to take the opportunity to recognize a couple of people that we lost last month that were very near and dear to my personal educational experience, but who contributed a great deal to Grand Rapids Public Schools. One of them was my mentor who gave me an opportunity in administration, Mr. Jacob Robinson, who passed away. He served our district for 32 years in various administrative positions, including assistant principal at one of the high schools, administrator for elementary and secondary education, administrator for secondary education, and as director of compensatory education and specialty funded programs. He was an outstanding individual that provided great instructional leadership to this district. He loved kids. He was married, fortunately, to Dolores Robinson, who was, I believe, my 2nd grade teacher of Franklin Elementary, which is now Southwest, and miss her too. Both of them were great people. And then we have the passing of Jesus Chuy Negrete, who is probably one of the most famous, authentic, community activist comedians that advanced the Chicano movement throughout this country and contributed many of his performances here to motivate our children in Grand Rapids. And so just for historical purposes and to acknowledge these people who gave a lot to Grand Rapids and I'm sure impacted our children over the years. So that's my comment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Flores. Ms. Williams.
Congratulations to the class of 2021. And I would like to piggyback off of Dr. Roby's comments about the staff and the community making the graduation special for our students. Thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
I would also like to second the statement said by Dr. Roby and Mrs. Williams, because I was not thrilled about the idea of being outside, but after I got there and after I sat through a few, I discovered it really was a great experience. The kids were so happy. It was just such a joyful 3 evenings. And I appreciate all the work that people had to do to make that happen. And I have been spending a lot of time this past, 15 months congratulating our teachers and our sports staff and everyone who's had so much extra work to do because of the pandemic. And I think it's time that we give the parents their due because it has been very difficult for a lot of people. And I know in my family, my daughter and my granddaughters are very fortunate because they have all kinds of support and there are only the 2 of them. And I know that we have families with many more children and parents who've had to leave to go to work and sometimes had lots of troubles getting their kids on that computer to do their work. And my hat is off to them because it is a huge job and a huge responsibility. And under all these terribly difficult circumstances, I think that our parents did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
I just want to throw out there congratulations to all of the kids, K-12, for getting through this year. I came home today to a picture in my room of my son in a graduation uniform. He's finishing kindergarten at Southwest, and it was adorable. And I just think our staff and our kids have done such an amazing job. And I also want to say thank you for the public comment tonight. I just really admire anyone who comes to the board meetings and make sure their voice is heard. I think sometimes that takes a lot of guts. So thank you for making sure we hear you.
Thank you. Dr. Baker.
Yes, thank you. Just again, to reiterate, it was a real honor to be a part of the graduations last week, to be there in the middle of Houseman Field and to watch all those students who went through this year and made it through this year, along with their families, staff. It was pretty remarkable. And it was a tough year for everybody. And I want to thank everybody involved in getting through the year. And also I want to agree with Ms. Davis about the significance of the breadth of input that we heard tonight. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
No comment.
All right. Reverend Matias.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the resiliency of our district, our parents. I truly appreciate the parents that showed up tonight to voice, and then in light of moving forward as a district and really beginning to evaluate ourselves and see where we need to change and where the opportunities are for our administrators and our superintendent, and just trying to keep the momentum of what's been going on and what we've been going through certainly as a society. And so really appreciate the resiliency of our parents and certainly our students, our graduates. It was amazing to be in that field, in the public, in masses of people after being literally locked up. And so it was a good experience to celebrate with our folks. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, graduation is one of the best parts of this job. It is a pure joy to sit on the stage and watch the celebration among our students and our families. Thinking of this last school year almost feels insurmountable. We've gone through so much change. Listening to our graduates, our valedictorians and salutatorians talk about their shared suffering, yet how that created community and care for one another in our student communities was powerful. I wish there was a phrase bigger than thank you, something that we could say when it really, 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 really mattered, to express our gratitude for what everyone has done over this last year, from parapros to bus drivers, to food service, to security, to teachers and building administrators, parents and students, the list goes on. It takes a village, and I am just overwhelmingly grateful for everyone that played a part in making this year happen for Grand Rapids Public Schools. So at the close of the school year, I just say thank you. I wish there were bigger words than that. All right, tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here.